Just want to introduce myself. Hey, everyone. Jared Weston. I'm with GradLeaders Athletics, and just want to thank you for joining today's employer info session featuring our friends at Gartner. Before I hand the stage over to Stephanie and her team, I just want to encourage you to submit any questions via the chat feature, and we can address those at the end of the presentation. Or if it's something, relevant to the conversation, I might just chime in and share that question with you all at that time. But with that, Stephanie, I will turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jared. And hi, Hassan and Jordan, who just joined. I am going to, because I'm about to change the slide here. So if you haven't scanned the QR code yet, do it right now. And if I somehow change it before you do, I just dropped in the chat a link that the QR code will take you to for you to submit your general information, your areas of interest, so that way us here at Gartner can stay in contact with you as you can move through that career journey. Go ahead, fill that out as we move through our presentation today, but want to be respectful of everyone's time because I know we're all super busy, and jump into our presentation. So thank you for joining us. So before we really get started today, and before I introduce our awesome panelists, Caroline, Leah, and Ryan, I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes to introduce you guys to Gartner, because I'm going to guess you're probably wondering really what Gartner is. It is not a household name. I definitely felt that way when I was a student, and I'm sure our panelists felt the same way too. They'd probably never heard of Gartner in their day-to-day. So what is Gartner? So first of all, Gartner has been in existence for over 40 years now. And throughout this time, we've been helping clients make the right decisions at the right time to stay ahead of change. All right, so that is very generic, right? Let's break it down. So Gartner is delivering actionable and objective insight to executives. So think CEOs, CIOs, chief marketing officers, chief tech officers, CFOs, right? So those executives and their teams. We're doing this so that way we can help those leaders make faster, smarter decisions and perform stronger on their most critical priorities. And we're doing this to over 300,000 individual professionals across every business function in the organization. So like I mentioned, all of those different C-level executives, we're doing that across finance, sales, marketing, technology, legal, you name a business unit, Gartner is helping support those leaders and their teams. We're doing that with over 14,000 client organizations, and we're doing it globally. And we also have over 76% of the Global 500 as clients of Gartner's that are leveraging our insight. So we broke that down a little bit, but it's still a little vague, right? Okay, so we're helping these C-level executives make better decisions, right? How do we actually do that? So we deliver this actionable, objective insight to the executives and their teams to really help them make better decisions. So like I mentioned, we're doing it through all of these different business functions: customer support and service, HR, IT. You're definitely going to hear that a lot here at Gartner is IT. And we're doing it globally in over 100 countries across the world. But we do it through three main ways. So the first is through actionable, objective insight. So what that actually translates into is research. So it's an intangible. Ultimately, what our clients are coming to Gartner for is information, for knowledge, for data. And the way they consume that is through research documents primarily. So we have thousands of analysts across the globe who are collecting this information, this data that's proprietary and objective, and they're compiling it and putting it together in research documents for our clients to use to better understand their markets, technologies, trends, what's coming down the road, so that way they can make better informed decisions as a leader. Then we also pair that research, so literally the written research documents, right? So think about the library when you're going to read the book, with the expert guidance. So like I mentioned, we've got over 2,000 analysts globally who have years of experience in their given field, right? Whether it's in IT or in HR, or maybe they were a former CEO in healthcare. So they have extensive experience, and then they're working with our clients every single day, and they're collecting all of this data. So they're writing the research, they're talking to our clients. So they're really going to contextualize that. So our clients are allowed to have those discussions with the experts. So now think about that library, and now you're actually able to talk to that author who wrote the book, and they're going to give you that second level. They're going to contextualize it to your specific experience. And then finally, we equip all of our clients with practical tools. So whether that's a plug and play spreadsheet, because we've seen over the past 10 years, these are the typical spending trends for that CEO's business area, so we can help them make guided, better decisions. Or it's a tool like actually attending a conference. Gartner will bring together leaders in the industry as well as our own analysts and help them come together to leverage each other to make those better decisions. We're helping them put it into action. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to see if there are any questions, but then I'm going to give you guys a more concrete example. So I think the example will help bring it to life. So think about the CIO, a chief information officer of a cloud computing company, right? We all know the cloud is growing these days. We use it as individual consumers, but companies have to use it too. And now that everyone is virtual, working from home, no one's actually in the office anymore, these CIOs have to think about keeping all of their employees' data and the company's data even more secure in the cloud, right? Because I'm sitting here right at home using my work laptop, but my own personal internet. How do they keep that secure in the cloud, right? So that's a new challenge this CIO has to face and figure out how to address to ensure that their company is successful. So what's the best way to figure that out? Well, work with Gartner, because we have the research talking about the best ways to approach that. What are some of the challenges that the CIO is going to face? How much money should they probably be spending? What technologies should they use? And then the analysts they can talk to. And then in a virtual world, but we're getting back on site, right? That CIO can also attend a Gartner conference, talk to some of their peers who are facing similar challenges, hear from technology vendors who sell the technology to help. So hopefully that simple example can show you how we bring information and data to life to really help companies across the globe make better decisions. So simply, if you were someone to ask you what Gartner did, right? We help companies and their leaders make better decisions around their most critical priorities. So I'm going to pause. Do you guys have any quick questions here? Awesome. So let's move on from what Gartner actually does to what it's like working here, because that's really the important part, right? You know, you can do a job at any kind of company, but what's the most important is what is your day-to-day going to be like? What's really cool about Gartner is over the past 40 years, we've really taken a look at what has been consistent with our culture. And we've pulled out 10 key areas that across the board, you're going to see no matter what role you're in, no matter what business unit, no matter what country you live in or office you work at, you're going to see at Gartner. So I'll pause for a second, let you all look at this. But as a transition into our panelists, and I'm surprising them with this because I did think about this this morning, but I am going to introduce our panelists And then I would love to hear from all of them how they see elements of our culture here at Gartner. And I'm actually going to start. So I'll give my first example of how I see win as a team coming to life here at Gartner. So obviously I'm in recruiting. I am really focused on our students coming from the university. I came straight from a sales program to work at Gartner, and I'm really focused on getting students to come work at Gartner, but I can't do it alone. So we have our recruiters, we have our in-house recruiters who give you your offers, but we have to rely on people like Caroline, Leah, Ryan to help, because I just don't have enough experience to tell you all student athletes about what that transition is like. Because I'll tell you, my only real athletic experience in my 4 years at school was playing intramural sand volleyball. And I was so bad, I did not know how to hit the ball that I bruised whatever this bone is right here, that I actually had to be put in a splint. So I got 1 game out of intramural volleyball. So clearly I am not an expert. I needed to reach out to my team to tap into some amazing former student athletes, now kick ass. I'm going to use some foul language here because I know we're all really cool, but some amazing Gartner associates. So I am now going to just turn it over to our awesome panel. So I'm going to introduce each of them, and then I will let you all tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of how you've seen Gartner culture come to life before we move into Q&A. So Caroline, I'm really excited to introduce Caroline Kuhn.
Kuhn, yeah.
I'm sorry, that's another one on me. I'm like, probably should have learned how to pronounce her last name. Caroline Kuhn. She is currently an account manager here at Gartner in Fort Myers, one of our largest locations globally. And she attended Wake Forest and played volleyball. We also have Ryan Sargent. He is an account executive, attended Ohio University and played baseball. And then Leah Crockett, a senior account executive, attended Michigan and played softball. So we have a lot of variety in universities and sports. So I'm going to pass it over to you all. So maybe Caroline, if you want to kick it off, introduce yourself, give a little background, and tell us some about Gartner culture.
Yeah, thanks so much, Stephanie. Hi guys. Like Stephanie said, my name is Caroline. I just graduated from Wake Forest this past May, so I'm not super removed from where you guys are in this stage of life. I actually had the Gartner internship, stumbled upon it before going into, COVID 2020, everything. And long story short, Gartner is actually the only job that I applied for after that. So maybe don't take that piece of advice from me, but I think that everything Stephanie mentioned about the culture in this company is really something to consider as you're going on your job search, because growing up, our sport has been our identity. We've all been a part of a team from day one. And I can genuinely say that my team here at Gartner has become, the new version of the close-knit team that I had at Wake Forest. And I think that that's really important as you're looking for a best fit in a career. But from a little bit more personal standpoint, my major was a marketing communications concentration in the business school at Wake, which I think a lot of those skills transfer nicely to this job. But I have friends that were finance majors. I have another friend that was a computer science major. So there's lots of skills within Gartner that complement your time as an athlete, as well as a lot of different areas that you might be studying in college right now. So I personally have found it to be a really great fit. It's challenging, but it's rewarding to say the least. And you actually feel like you're making an impact every single day with your clients, which I think is, the ultimate reward here. So hope that's what you were looking for with a background, Stephanie. But, I guess I can pass it over to Ryan now.
Perfect. Thanks, Caroline.
What's going on, guys? Similar to what Caroline was saying, so started with Gartner here in 2020. Before that, played baseball at Ohio University. I redshirted my freshman year, so I took a nice little victory lap, was there for 5 years. that 5th year ended up being the COVID year. So got started with Gartner in October of that COVID year after kind of taking a little hiatus from school, which was nice before you got into the whole workforce. Favorite thing about working at Gartner is similar to what both Caroline and Stephanie said, just the team culture that we've kind of created here. I know within my region, everybody I work with, it's incredibly collaborative. Reminds me a lot of a team. We're kind of all pushing in the same direction. I think our motto as a region is to make sure that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction, have the same goal in mind. Sorry if you guys can hear my dogs barking in the background. My fiance just got home. But yeah, no, love working here. It's definitely a great place to start out and get your feet under you in the workforce. Similar to Caroline said, you know, our entire lives have been focused on whatever sport that you play. And I think a lot of the skills that you learn over time from starting out as playing a sport as a young kid, leading all the way up to college, kind of is very transferable over into the workforce, working for Gartner, as far as, you know, setting goals, taking the right steps you need to accomplish those goals, as well as, you know, being like a team player and working hard.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan.
And my dog stopped barking right when I got done talking.
That's how it is these days.
Yeah.
Awesome. Leah.
Yeah, awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. And thank you, Stephanie, for that presentation in the beginning. So I came to Gartner right out of college from Michigan, and I graduated in 2019. And similar to what Caroline and Ryan said, I would say the biggest thing for me from a culture perspective is really the collaboration. Just anyone to your right, to your left, like, is always willing to help you, and not just help you, but then also really understand and care about like your own goals and professional aspirations. So from leadership down, they're very transparent about like what's next, like where do you want to go next, whether that be within Gartner or not. They always want to help you get there, which I found really attractive out of an organization. And it's a very competitive landscape, which I love. We're always setting really big goals and just chasing after them. And like I said, like everyone to your left, right is there to help you. And I also think it's really cool that right out of college, like you're running meetings with C-level executives. Like I know for me personally, now I'm at a point where I'm working with organizations between 750 million and 1.2 billion in revenue. And I'm speaking directly with their CEOs and CFOs sometimes. And I think that is really cool to say when I'm not even 25 yet. So I love that. So it's really the people, the competitiveness, which translates so well from sports. And I just feel like everyone I know that's a student athlete at Gartner, they just tend to do very well, which is really nice. So I don't know, there's a lot of different things to like, but yeah, hope that helps paint a picture.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Leah. And thanks to all of you guys for giving your intros and kind of kicking off why you joined Gartner, right? And why you've been already so successful here. So I have a couple of questions prepared, but I know it's always most valuable when our audience gets to ask the questions they have. So I'm actually going to start and open it up to see if any of you guys have questions for Caroline, Leah, or Ryan. But if not, I have plenty of questions I can ask to fill some time and pick their brains for some insight. So feel free to pop off of mute or throw it in the chat if you guys have some questions to learn, whether it's about the transition from being a student athlete to the working world at Gartner, or why Gartner, skill set wise. This is your time to really leverage them and their expertise and experience.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go right ahead, Takuma.
So like, what are some of the skills as a student athletes that were like transferable from like being in college to like entering the world of professional?
Yeah. Brian, go ahead.
That one. As a student athlete, right? Like we have a crazy schedule. You're up at 6 a.m. for workouts. Then you probably have, 3 or 4 classes that day, then maybe practice later the day. And then you've got your homework that you've got to do later that night, whatever. And you have to be super organized and very plan oriented with your weeks if you're going to be successful on and off the field. And in my opinion, in this role, one of the biggest keys to success is able to manage your time and stay organized, because you are working with, sometimes 10 accounts that have multiple seat holders on each account. So, you could be managing up to, 30, 35 people at a time plus prospecting. So you need to hold the ability to actually manage that and stay organized and don't lose sight of certain individuals. For me, I feel like that's been the biggest skill that's transferred over. It was almost seamless in the way that I ran my weekly schedule in college to the way I run my weekly schedule now.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And just to kind of take that even one step further from a time management perspective, you just have to take extreme ownership of your calendar. And that is something that I think is kind of backwards from the, coming from a schedule that was pretty much entirely built between your strength coaches, your coaches, and your academic counselors. You kind of have freedom to build your own agenda, build your own to-do list every day, and hold yourself accountable to that. And this is kind of an oddly specific thing that I've had to really learn, because, in college, during practice, during tutoring, whatever it may have been, your best was always the standard. Otherwise, you wouldn't play. But here, you kind of have to really figure out how to compartmentalize and prioritize when good enough is good enough. But beyond that, the time management side of things, I would say a more fun transferable skill is just the overall sense of team that you have wherever you end up being placed in Gartner, should you guys choose to accept a position here down the road. I truly feel like my teammates are fully invested in my success and as I am in theirs. And so I think that is probably if I had to pick a favorite transferable skill, the way that I treat my teammates here is very similar, if not pretty much the same as I treated my teammates in college from an accountability and an encouragement perspective.
Yeah, I would second that. I think the only other thing that comes to mind, I don't know about your guys' coaches, but when I was in college, my softball coach would always say attention to detail. Like every practice, she was like, attention to detail is so important. And I think that's something that has really stuck with me, and it translates really well to the job. You're dealing with a lot of different situations, but if you always remember the little things, even if it's just like the little things about your clients, like their personal life, or trying to go the extra mile for them. I feel like that's a lot of times like in our nature as student athletes, like here's the bar, we always want to surpass it. And to me, I think that translates off the field as well. So it's attention to detail and also preparation. Like we do a lot of role plays and stuff if you're prepping for a really big call, like with a CEO, a CFO, or a CIO, and just always practicing for the big moment and practicing like you play. I think it translates really well, especially for sales.
That's a great point. And so I'm going to pause here for a second before I go into Jordan's question. I saw that come through the chat. Thanks, Jordan. So I will mention, so Caroline, Leah, and Ryan are all within our sales function at Gartner, which is one of the biggest that we look to hire college graduates into. So definitely sales is, a lot of these skills transfer into sales, obviously, as we've seen these three have a lot of success. But we are also hiring college graduates and interns into our client services and research functions as well. So just know too, when they're talking about these skills, they might be referencing, their specific role, but the skills really are transferable no matter the role that you would end up being interested in or maybe being a good fit for. So I will just give that caveat. And it kind of leads into Jordan's question. Jordan asked, how was that transition? And how did you know that you wanted to work at Gartner? And I'm actually going to start with Caroline, because you interned here. You mentioned that, and then that you only ever applied to Gartner. So what was it that attracted you to Gartner and kind of that transition that you made?
Well, I would say there's a couple of different layers to my journey. The first being that, you know, my internship got canceled because of COVID. And so I never actually got to intern here. But I had made a really close friend of mine who was a couple years older than me at an internship back like the summer of my sophomore year of college. And he ended up starting here as well. And so he was the first one that talked to me about it. And then when I got on the phone with the recruiter, one thing that really stood out to me was the purpose behind her feedback on our first call together. And what I mean by that is she said from the very beginning that, you know, this is a very trial and error, learn by doing culture, and you're expected to fail fast, fail forward, but fail productively. And I was really drawn to that sentiment because obviously the pressure is so much higher in your sport to not fail and not do that. And so that was interesting in and of itself. But flash forward to the fall of last year as I was interviewing, in my final round of questions with the VP who was asking me and, you know, just chatting with me about, you know, my background, what I was doing, what I was planning on doing, et cetera, I noticed that they were also genuinely interested in me as a human being beyond just the very interviewee, career-y questions. And when they sent me my offer letter, I just kind of had a good feeling that this was the place for me. And there's a couple of things about my first, you know, 2, 4, 6 months here that have really solidified that this was the right place for me, is that it's every day is different. Every day is a challenge. And when you think you've learned something and mastered something, you realize there's something else to learn. And perfectionism is never expected. And it's a lot of fun to think that you're so supported internally by your team, by your vice presidents, by your managers, whoever it may be. But also you are literally telling the C-suites of, you know, multi-million-dollar organizations what to do and connecting them with the right people, connecting them with the right resources to the point where they ultimately are, you know, closing deals because of the advice that you're able to give them. And that's really cool to me because you're kind of, you know, creating an extended team in each of your clients. So that's kind of like a very broad scope of why I chose Gartner and, you know, how I knew it was the right decision. But yeah, I mean, I'm really happy. I feel challenged, I feel welcomed, and I feel really, really supported every single day here.
That's awesome. I definitely remember that feeling of being like, wow, I just told a CEO what decisions they might be making, and then watching them actually make them was pretty cool. I was like, wow, I definitely didn't have that knowledge, but Gartner did, and I backed it up. It's pretty cool to get to engage with those C-level executives right after you graduate. You know, so I know Leah was talking about that earlier, getting to talk to CEOs and CFOs daily, and you're not even 25 yet. It's a pretty cool experience. Ryan or Leah, do you guys have any comments on, you know, what it was about Gartner that made you want to come here, and then just that transition of moving from being a student athlete to, you know, working in the real world?
Yeah. So my journey is kind of long. So when I was actually a freshman in college at Michigan, two of my teammates were seniors, and they went and did interviews on site with Gartner, and they came back and they were like raving about the company. And I looked up to these two teammates. They were like two of our captains. And I was like, I want to follow in their footsteps. And so Gartner was honestly on my radar like all throughout college, which I feel like that's never the case for anyone. So I basically, same as Caroline, I was like, well, I'm just going to go to the career fair and do the internship. And thankfully it was all pre-pandemic days, so I got to do the internship. And there was like 150 interns in college, like in Florida. We had an absolute blast. It was so fun. And that's where I was like, I'm obsessed with this company culture. So I was like, I'm going to take this job. So that's kind of how I ended up here. But really the reason why I stayed and what has made me want to stay long-term is that I'm not the person that like just wants to hop between jobs. Like I very much like to stick with a company. And I know that's not as common these days, but I really look for not just a job, but like a career. Like I want to be able to stay and like grow with Gartner and try out new things. And that's what got me most excited, is because just because you enter in one department, they are really good about promoting you upward, but also laterally too. So if I wanted to look into recruiting and do something like Stephanie did, then Gartner's people are always more than happy to like put me in contact with those people. And that goes for anyone, which I like loved about the culture as well.
That's awesome. And, you know, kind of going off of your comment of being one of 100 interns and having that amazing experience. If there are any current juniors on the call right now, we are still hiring for our internships upcoming this summer. So I'll put that plug in here real quickly. Ryan, what drew you to Gartner?
Yeah, so for me, I honestly just think the Gartner product, like what we're selling and what we're doing here is really awesome. As they talked about, you're working with these C-level executives, and even more so, you're working with them on a strategic basis. So I've got a variety of accounts. I work with, the IT side of the team, like a CIO or a CTO. I'm also working with CMOs. I'm working with chief product officers. So I'm learning throughout the entire process different initiatives that these organizations are running. Like from when I started in 2020 to now, I have such a clear understanding of how an organization would run a demand generation campaign, or how you would go about actually taking a product to market and like the steps that you need to take there. And I don't think you get that anywhere else at really any other company, because within a sales role, at least, let's say you work at Dell, for example, like you're selling a product that is a very specific niche area, versus within Gartner, you're working on a variety of different initiatives that's not tailored to one specific place, but really tailored to all C-level executives. So I thought that was super interesting. And then on top of it, for me, one of the major things I was looking for from a company is just the fact that you make it what you make it how good you make it the work you put into it, if that makes sense. Like within Gartner, you'll be as good at this job based on how much time and how much effort you put in. And for me, like that's direct translation to how athletes think. Like if you're willing to put in the extra hours, willing to put in the extra time, more times than not, the results will start to show on the field. And it's the exact same with Gartner. If you're willing to, reach out extra, dig a little deeper on their initiatives, send some more value, like chances are you're going to end up being very successful in this role. And I think that is why student athletes succeed more often than not in this position and with Gartner.
Yeah, that's awesome. People always say that working at Gartner is like getting an MBA for free because you just learn so much through what Gartner actually does. So, you make a great point, Ryan, and kind of talking about, that what you're learning, how you're doing it. So I know you also just talked about putting in that effort and the practice and the work to do well, right? Well, at Gartner, we have some really great training programs. And I know that translates to student athletes a lot of the times, because you spend so much time training and practicing and preparing to see that success. So I'd love it if you guys talked a little bit about what your training looked like and how you were set up for success, and how you're currently set up for success and supported in your roles now.
Yeah, so
you go,
I guess
Ryan.
I think we probably all had a little bit different experiences, right? Because the training has shifted somewhat. So I was the final training of our SOAR program is what it was. And they did a fantastic job of arming us for success from day one. I know for me, I didn't have like a sales internship throughout college. I was always playing baseball in the summers. I wasn't, working. For me, like baseball was my job. And so going into a new career, like in a workforce, I was a little nervous, right? Like I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but Gartner did a great job of making sure that, within a 3-month time span, I felt fully confident that I could go and talk to a C-level executive and with conviction, actually, you know, provide ideas and like strategic advice for success.
Awesome. I love that. Caroline, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, my training was different than Leah's and Ryan's for sure. But what my experience was with it is that you're kind of drinking from a fire hose of information that all is contextualized by your manager and by your team. And so they give you all the tools that you will need to succeed, but then you're actually taught the information on a much more personal level as it relates to the clients that you're going to inherit once you start the role. And so everything that we do here at Gartner is very purposeful and intentional. And I don't think training is any exception to that. So it's a very steep learning curve for sure. But, you know, like Stephanie and Ryan were mentioning a little bit earlier, it's you're being paid to get an MBA in 6 months here, essentially. I mean, I've learned more in the past 6 months here than I did, you know, in a pretty long time at college. So it's definitely a challenge, but I would much rather be challenged than be bored. So
I would say one thing about the most recent training that they do now for new hires that we've gotten really great feedback on is now it's all about taking who are the top performers across Gartner and then putting them in direct contact with the new hires. So it's kind of like, show me. I know a lot of us as like athletes and stuff, it's like, give me the bat and like, show me exactly how you're gripping it so then I can simulate that. Like, that's exactly how the training is now. It's like, they just take the people that are the best at certain skills and then they have them present and like walk the new hires through exactly how they're running their calls, aligning resources, like doing all sorts of stuff. Then you're able to see what good looks like, and then it's easy to emulate it after that.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think it's just so funny of talking about how much you all have learned. I learned so much. And it's like, got a great education when we were at our universities. But it's crazy how much really comes to life when you're at Gartner and you're seeing it happen with your clients and you're hearing all about it. And finally things are clicking. You're like, I retained it for that test, but now it's really coming back. So that's awesome. So I know that we are getting closer to time. So I want to open it back up to see if any of you all have questions for our awesome panelists. And again, it can be from, you know, that skill transfer from, you know, on the field or the court to Gartner, the different types of roles, challenges, things they loved. Really no question is off limits. Also same for me. If you have questions about specific roles, hiring process, let us know.
Yeah, I actually had one question. During your all's interview process with Gartner, how did y'all, or what were some strategies that y'all used for kind of like marketing yourselves as athletes? I think, and then I got a more kind of a specific question for Ryan. I kind of the same similar situation, playing summer baseball. Makes it a little bit more difficult not having that true like internship, because a lot of companies kind of ask for experiences like that. What were some ways, kind of more like in your way, that you marketed yourself without having those specific internships?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so something I tried to do as best I could was get like active on campus. So I was part of like student athlete advisory committee. We kind of ran some events within the community, which gave me some level of like internship experience, right? And it was definitely like a talking point that I could reach back to outside of sports. As far as the interview process goes, I mean, in my mind, there's really nothing that's not applicable from sports and from your journey from starting playing sports to, you know, where you are now, that doesn't directly apply to being successful in the role. Name a time you set a goal and then, you know, took steps to get there. Like that is exactly what you've done from probably like when you started playing baseball at 5 to, you know, your age now. you set goals at a certain time and you know, worked hard to get to that point. So I think reach back, in my opinion, reach back on like the experiences you've had as an athlete, working in a team, time management, organizational skills. All of those things are fantastic traits that are directly applicable to working in the workforce.
Yeah, I'll second that and just say also, I think as athletes, we almost get used to what we do on a daily basis, you know, like the waking up early, the going to weights, the going to class, like it's routine, it's normal for us. But you have to remember that, you know, what we do is something that only 1% of high school students get to do. And so that inherently, you know, not to get everyone's head big on the call, but that's why we're doing programs like this, because employers are directly looking for student athletes. And so, like, just take the little things that you do day in and day out. It might have been like, you know, a skill that you were working on and then you were able to showcase it in a big moment in a game. It might be something like that. As simple as getting involved in SAC. Like, I will preach SAC till the day I die. I was president at Wake Forest, and it took like that. The experience that you get in SAC is invaluable. So definitely get involved in some capacity there if you haven't already. One other piece of it. Oh yeah. And Takuma, I know, you know, Ashley is always like pushing these things on us at Wake. But get involved with your academic center and your career counselors. I know that, you know, a lot of them, if y'all's universities are anything like Wake Forest, they're very heavy on, you know, career prep, resume work. I know a lot of places will host workshops for that stuff. So take advantage of the resources that are available to you if you can. And just remember that what you do day in and day out is very special. And there's a reason why only 1% of people are able to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
From the recruiting perspective. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, Caroline made a great point there. And I think it's something that I didn't even really recognize until I started in role. But like what we did as student athletes, as far as, you know, the grind that we put in, waking up early, the extra hours that you maybe put in outside of practice, in your mind might seem like it's like, it became secondhand. It's like, okay, I want to reach a goal. I want to, you know, start at second base, bat, fourth in the lineup, whatever. So I'm going to do X, Y, Z to get to that point. But for people that don't have those, you know, goals in mind, maybe like that doesn't become secondhand. They have to take different approaches to get to where we are. And it's definitely not something to take lightly. Like that's what organizations are looking for from people. That's kind of what sets us apart. Once you hit that workforce, like you already have that as far as second nature. So don't take it lightly, kind of what Caroline was saying.
From the recruiting perspective, Ryan, tactically, treat your student athlete experience as the job, right? Recruiters and companies understand the time commitment. We understand really what it is, and we equivalate that. You know, that's the same to us. And so then when it actually comes to translating that on your resume or in the interview process, it all goes back to exactly what Caroline and Ryan said of talk about the time when you set a goal, and what steps did you go through? How would you replicate that in the workplace? It's all about, it's essentially that behavioral based interviewing. You have this skill set, you're just applying it in a different situation in a career setting. So 100% echo what they both said. I know we are right up at that kind of 45-minute time frame. I am more than happy to stay around, answer any additional questions. I am going to move the slide because this is my email. Feel free to write it down, shoot me an email in the chat. I'm going to put it in one more time too. Maybe chat, pull it back up. We definitely want to stay in contact with you all. So go ahead, fill out this this form. It'll submit like your contact information, areas of interest, your grad dates. So that way we can stay in contact with you all about opportunities we have, or even just general recruiting tips, tricks. We are going to be at the GradLeaders virtual career fair, essentially a month from today, which is already crazy to think about. We're approaching February. So we would love to see you all there. Like I mentioned, we're hiring for internships, full-time roles for graduates. We're also even looking for sophomores for some of our development programs over the summer, in sales, in client services, in research, finance, pretty much all across the board. So definitely find a way to contact me recruiting wise. I'm sure Caroline, Ryan, Leah would be more than happy to connect with you guys on LinkedIn too. Sorry if I'm speaking for you, but I know these guys are really awesome and giving us great insight. So we'll pause for a second. Any last minute questions? And then I'll also see if Jared has any comments from the Grad Leaders Athletics side. Awesome.
Yeah, what an amazing session. Thank you all so much. I love hearing the experience, and that's one of the things that we're working with athletic departments, we're working with employers, and the one thing that each of you touched on that is so invaluable from an experience standpoint and just insight is don't discredit the experience that you all that you have and those skills that you're building through sport, through competition on a daily basis. It's easy to take it for granted because that's just what you do, but just understand that that's not what most people do. So
no, I told you, it's definitely not what most people do, especially in my case. So you guys are all already way impressive in my book.
Yeah, and that's again, I've done some mock interviews with some programs, and they're like, I don't really have any experience, and I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there. What you do day in and day out is the experience that you want to share with employers. And so obviously you can see Gartner highly values it, and you see the success that student athletes have within their structured development and their organization. So again, as Stephanie said, they'll be at our virtual career fair, February 23rd. You've got Stephanie's information and the link to share your contact information. Stephanie's also posted jobs and internships that they're currently looking for within the platform that you registered for. So on your dashboard, there's a job section. You can search Gartner and learn more about those opportunities as well. But with that, thank you all again for coming tonight, listening. Thank you all for participating. Caroline, Ryan, Leah, Stephanie, you guys are rock stars. We'll look forward to seeing you again in February, but take their advice, reach out. It's never too soon to build that network. So
well, thank you so much for having us, Jared, and thank you all for coming. Definitely invite your friends, your teammates to the career fair next month. And like Jared said, don't hesitate to reach out beforehand. We are actively hiring right now, and even if it's not a hiring conversation you want to have, Gartner is really proactive about developing our current associates and hopefully our future talent. So we are more than happy to have some conversations with you guys. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good luck if you have any games or competitions coming up. I'm a huge college basketball fan, so I have been glued to my TV pretty much every night and cannot wait for March to come around. So excited for you all. Have a great rest of your evening and your week.
Thanks, everyone.
You.
Thank you.
You guys.
Bye, guys.
Good luck. Bye.
Thank you.